My wife cheated, stole $1.2 million in life insurance meant for our dying daughter, fled to Cabo with her lover. But I exposed her lies, took her to court, and built a foundation in our child's name instead. Lily was gone, and Ethan Miller was burying her alone. His 6-year-old daughter lay in a white coffin too small to comprehend, her favorite teddy bear Mr. Paws tucked beside her, its patched fur a silent witness to a life cut short. The Oregon cemetery was a gray blur, clouds choking the sky, the air heavy with the threat of rain. Ethan stood rigid at the graveside, a school counselor turned hollow shell, his hands clenched to keep the pieces of himself from shattering. Around him, the small town gathered, neighbors, teachers, parents of kids he'd guided through teenage crises, their whispers stung like needles. "Poor Ethan," they said. "How's he holding up?" But the sharper murmurs cut deeper. "Where's Vanessa? How could she not be here?" Vanessa, his wife, Lily's mother, was gone. 3 days ago she'd left a note, "I need space," and vanished. Ow, as Ethan faced their daughter's grave, her absence was a wound as raw as Lily's death. A rare illness had stolen Lily, creeping through her tiny body over months of hospital beds and fading hope. Ethan could still hear her laugh, see her hazel eyes light up when she hugged Mr. Paws. He'd failed her, he knew it, missed some sign, some cure. The guilt was a stone in his chest, crushing the air from his lungs. And Vanessa's disappearance? That was his failure too. What had he done to push her away? The questions gnawed, unanswered, as the minister's voice droned about eternal rest. Ethan's mother, Ruth, stood beside him, her hand on his arm like an anchor. Her eyes, red but steady, offered strength he couldn't find in himself. He nodded faintly, clinging to her presence. The crowd's pity pressed in. Mrs. Carter from the library, Coach Daniels, the Patels, all watching, their sympathy a weight he couldn't bear. He wanted to scream, to demand why Lily, why now, why Vanessa wasn't here. Instead, he stayed silent, jaw tight, nails digging into his palms. The coffin gleamed under the dull sky, so small it mocked the universe's cruelty. Ethan's knees buckled as he pictured Lily inside, her tiny hands curled around Mr. Paws. The minister closed his Bible. One by one, people stepped forward, laying roses on the coffin, red, white, pink. Ethan waited. Last in line, his hands shaking as he clutched a yellow rose, Lily's favorite. He knelt, the damp earth soaking his pants. "I'm sorry, Lily," he whispered, voice cracking. "I love you. Forever." He set the rose down, fingers lingering on the wood, willing it to carry his words to her. The crowd shuffled, some turning toward the church for the service. Ruth touched his shoulder, urging him to move, but Ethan couldn't. Not yet. The first shovel of dirt hit the coffin, a dull thud that echoed in his bones. Ethan stared, unblinking, as Lily's grave began to fill. Vanessa should have been here. They should have mourned together. But she was gone, and Ethan was alone, carrying a father's grief and a husband's betrayal. He stood, finally, and turned toward the church, each step heavier than the last, the whispers of the town trailing him like shadows. Ethan's shoes crunched on the gravel path leading to the church, each step pulling him further from Lily's grave and deeper into a fog of grief. The crowd's murmurs faded behind him, replaced by the hollow chime of the church bell calling mourners in sight. Ruth walked at his side, her hand still on his arm. But Ethan felt untethered, like a man drifting in a storm with no shore in sight. His mind replayed the thud of dirt on Lily's coffin, the yellow rose trembling in his hand. He didn't want to face the service. More words, more pity, but he had no choice. For Lily, he'd keep going. As he reached the church steps, his phone buzzed in his coat pocket. The vibration was sharp, insistent, cutting through the numbness. Ethan stopped, frowning. Who would text him now? Ruth glanced at him, her brow creasing, but she said nothing. He pulled the phone out, the screen glowing in the dim light. An unknown number. His thumb hovered, then tapped the message open. A photo loaded and Ethan's breath caught. Vanessa. She was lounging poolside, sunglasses perched on her nose, a drink in hand, the turquoise water of a resort shimmering behind her. A younger man, tanned, grinning, leaned close, his arms slung casually around her shoulders. They looked carefree, alive, untouched by the sorrow drowning Ethan. Below the image, a caption. "You deserve to know what she's doing while you mourn." The world tilted. Ethan's grip tightened on the phone, his pulse hammering in his ears. Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. The location tag glowed like a taunt. While he'd buried their daughter, Vanessa was sipping cocktails with a stranger? The betrayal sliced through him, sharp and cold, layering atop the ache of Lily's loss. Who sent this? Why? His eyes darted to the number. Anonymous, no name, no clue. He scrolled up, searching for more, but there was nothing. Just the photo, the caption, and the truth he couldn't unsee. Ruth's voice was soft, concerned. She'd stopped a few steps ahead, watching him. "What's wrong?" He opened his mouth, but no words came. How could he tell her? That Vanessa wasn't just gone, she was living a different life, laughing while he broke. Shame burned in his chest, mixing with rage. He shoved the phone back into his pocket, the image seared into his mind. "Nothing," he muttered, forcing his feet to move. "Let's go." Ruth's eyes narrowed, unconvinced, but she nodded and followed him up the steps. The church doors loomed, heavy and dark, promising more hollow rituals. Ethan's hand trembled as he reached for the handle. Vanessa's absence had been a mystery, a wound. Now it was something else, something uglier. And whoever sent that text knew more than he did. As he stepped inside, the weight of grief and betrayal settled deeper, a storm building within him, ready to break. Ethan sat on the worn couch in his mother's living room, the weight of the day pressing him into the cushions. The church service had been a blur, hymns, eulogies, hands shaking as his. But the photo of Vanessa poolside burned behind his eyes, sharper than any condolence. Lily was gone, buried hours ago, and now his wife was a stranger, sipping cocktails in Cabo while he drowned. The phone in his pocket felt like a live wire, the anonymous text a secret he couldn't share. Not yet. Ruth moved quietly in the kitchen, the clink of a teapot grounding the silence. Her small house smelled of lavender and old wood, a familiar haven from Ethan's childhood. But today it offered no escape. He stared at his hands, still flecked with cemetery dirt, and wondered how everything had unraveled so fast. Lily's laugh echoed in his memory, then twisted into Vanessa's absence, her arm around that man. Betrayal clawed at him, tangled with guilt. Had he driven her to this? Or had she always been someone he didn't know? Ruth appeared, setting a steaming mug of chamomile tea in front of him. Her gray hair was pulled back, her face etched with grief but steady, like a lighthouse in a storm. She sat across from him in her armchair, her eyes searching his. "You're carrying more than Lily today, aren't you?" she said, her voice soft but piercing. Ethan's throat tightened. He wanted to spill it all, the text, the photo, the rage, but the words stuck. How could he admit his wife was lounging at a resort while he buried their daughter? Shame burned hot, mixing with the ache of loss. He picked up the mug, letting its warmth anchor him. "It's just hard," he managed. "All of it." Ruth leaned forward, her gaze unwavering. "Don't lie to me, Ethan. I know my boy. Something's eating you alive, and it's not just grief." Her tone was gentle but firm, the kind that had coaxed truths from him since he was a kid sneaking cookies before dinner. He looked away, the photo flashing in his mind. Vanessa's smile, the stranger's arm. "It's Vanessa," he said finally, voice low. "She's not here, and I don't know why." It wasn't the whole truth, but it was all he could manage. The rest felt too raw, too ugly. Ruth's lips pressed into a thin line, but she didn't push. Instead, she reached across the coffee table, her hand covering his. "Whatever she's done, you don't have to face it alone. Lily's gone, but I'm still here, and you're stronger than you think." Her words were a lifeline, steadying him against the chaos inside. Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. He wanted to believe her, but the photo gnawed at him, whispering questions he couldn't answer. Who sent it? What else was Vanessa hiding? Ruth's hand squeezed his, grounding him for now, but he knew this was only a pause. Something darker was waiting, and he wasn't ready for it. Not yet. Ethan's house buzzed, with the low hum of mourners, their voices a suffocating chorus of sympathy. The living room, once filled with Lily's toys and laughter, was now crowded with folding chairs and casserole dishes, a makeshift shrine to loss. Photos of Lily lined the mantel, her gap-toothed grin at a pumpkin patch, her tiny hand clutching Mr. Paws, each one a knife twisting in Ethan's chest. He stood near the doorway, a paper plate of untouched food in hand, nodding mechanically as neighbors offered condolences. The photo of Vanessa poolside still burned in his mind, a secret he carried like a bruise, and the weight of it made every interaction feel like a lie. The community had turned out in force. Teachers from the high school where Ethan counseled, parents of Lily's classmates, even the florist who donated lilies for the funeral. Their kindness was genuine, but their pity clung to him, heavy and inescapable. "You're so strong," Mrs. Patel said, her eyes misty. "Lily was lucky to have you." Ethan forced a tight smile, his throat too raw to respond. "Strong?" He was crumbling, held together by habit and Ruth's quiet presence across the room, where she refilled coffee cups and deflected small talk. Then he saw them. Charles and Dottie, Vanessa's parents, standing stiffly by the dining table. Their tailored clothes and pinched expressions stood out among the casual grief of the town. They'd barely spoken to Ethan at the funeral, and now their eyes flicked toward him with something colder than sorrow. Disdain. He felt it like a slap. Charles, a retired banker with a permanent scowl, clutched a glass of water, while Dottie adjusted her pearl necklace, her lips pursed as if tasting something sour. Ethan's grip on the plate tightened. They hadn't asked about Vanessa's absence, hadn't called to check on him. Did they know where she was? He moved toward them, driven by a need he couldn't name. "Charles, Dottie," he said, voice hoarse. "Thanks for coming." The words felt hollow, a formality. Charles gave a curt nod, his eyes sliding past Ethan. "Tragic day," he muttered, as if reading a script. Dotson's gaze lingered longer, sharp and accusing. "Lily deserved better," she said, her voice low but cutting. "All of this? It's just so unfortunate." Her words hung in the air, heavy with blame. Ethan froze, the implication clear. They held him responsible, as if he'd failed Lily, as if her illness was his fault. Before he could respond, Dottie turned away, whispering something to Charles. Ethan caught fragments, always knew he wasn't enough, and his stomach churned. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. He backed away, the plate slipping from his hand onto a table. Voices swirled around him, snippets of gossip breaking through the haze. "Vanessa didn't even show," someone murmured nearby. "Strange, isn't it?" Another voice, softer. "Poor man, raising Lily alone all those months." The pity was unbearable, a tidal wave drowning him. Ethan's eyes darted to Ruth, who was watching him from across the room, her brow creased with concern. He needed air, needed silence, but there was no escape here, not with Charles and Dottie's judgment, not with the town's whispers, not with Vanessa's betrayal pulsing in his pocket like a heartbeat. He turned toward the hallway, desperate for a moment alone, the weight of the day threatening to crush him completely. Ethan slipped into Lily's bedroom, shutting the door against the hum of the reception downstairs. The air was still, heavy with the scent of her strawberry shampoo lingering on the pillows. Her room was untouched. Stuffed animals lined the shelves, a half-finished drawing of a butterfly pinned to the corkboard, Mr. Paz's twin bear sitting lonely on the bed. The sight of it gutted him, a reminder of the coffin now buried under earth. He sank onto the edge of the mattress, his hands shaking. He'd come here for solace, for a piece of Lily, but the photo of Vanessa poolside followed him, a poison seeping into every thought. He needed answers. The anonymous text, Charles and Dottie's blame, the whispers. They all pointed to something rotting beneath the surface. His eyes drifted to Vanessa's desk in the corner, a space she'd claimed for work during Lily's illness. Papers were strewn across it, a chaos Ethan had ignored for months, too consumed by hospital visits and hope. Now it called to him, a nagging pull. He stood, heart pounding, and crossed the room. The desk was a mess, receipts, sticky notes, a coffee mug with lipstick stains. Ethan sifted through, his fingers brushing a thick envelope tucked under a stack of bills. He pulled it out, his breath catching at the logo, Pacific Life Insurance. His name was on it, alongside Lily's. He tore it open, scanning the document inside. A life insurance policy for Lily, dated 8 months ago. Coverage $1,200,000. His eyes locked on the beneficiary line. Vanessa Miller, sole recipient. His name, once listed, had been removed in an amendment 3 months back, his signature scrawled in ink that wasn't his. Shock pinned him in place. $1,200,000 for Lily's death, and Vanessa had cut him out. His mind reeled, the photo flashing again, her smile, the resort, the man. Was this why she'd left? He dug deeper, frantic now, pulling out bank statements from the drawer. Withdrawals jumped off the page. $5,000, $10,000, $8,000. A travel receipt fluttered to the floor. One-way ticket to Cabo San Lucas, purchased 4 days ago. Vanessa's name, business class. Another slip showed charges to a luxury spa, a jewelry store, a wine bar. Thousands spent while Lily faded. Ethan's legs buckled. He gripped the desk, bile rising in his throat. This wasn't just abandonment. Vanessa had planned it, cashed in on their daughter's death, forged his name, bled their savings dry. The room spun, Lily's butterfly drawing blurring in his vision. How long had she been lying? How blind had he been? Downstairs, the reception droned on, oblivious to the truth unraveling above. Ethan clutched the papers, rage and grief collided. He needed to know more, needed to understand the depth of her betrayal. But first, he had to survive this moment, this knife she'd driven into his heart. Ethan sat on Lily's bed, the insurance policy and bank statements scattered around him like shrapnel from a bomb. The $1,200,000 payout, Vanessa's forged signature, the Cabo ticket. They painted a betrayal so stark it stole his breath. The reception's noise drifted upstairs, a cruel reminder of the world moving on while his unraveled. He clutched his phone, the anomalous text with Vanessa's poolside photo still open, taunting him. Who had sent it? What did they want? His fingers trembled, itching to call Vanessa to demand answers. But he didn't trust himself to speak without breaking. The phone buzzed in his hand, startling him. An unknown number flashed on the screen, not the same as the text, but close enough to make his pulse spike. He stared, heart hammering, then swiped to answer. "Hello?" His voice was rough, barely his own. "Ethan Miller?" The voice was female, calm, unfamiliar, with a faint edge of urgency. "My name's Lauren Ross. You don't know me, but I know about Vanessa, and I think you need to hear what I have to say." He stiffened, gripping the phone tighter. "Who are you? How do you know my wife?" The word wife tasted bitter, foreign now. Lauren paused, as if choosing her words. "I'm someone who's been burned by the same people she's running with. I've saw what she's doing. Well, you're grieving your daughter. It's not right. I can tell you more, but not like this. Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m. at the Grindstone. It's a coffee shop on 4th Street. You'll want to hear this." Ethan's mind raced. The Grindstone was a quiet spot downtown, public enough to feel safe. But this woman, Lauren, who was she? Another trap? Or the key to understanding Vanessa's lies? "Why should I trust you?" he asked, his voice low, jagged. "I got a text today, a photo. Was that you?" "No," Lauren said firmly. "But I'm not surprised you're getting messages. She's not as careful as she thinks. Look, Ethan, I'm not asking for blind faith. Just show up. I'll have proof, texts, receipts. Things you need to see. You deserve the truth." The line went quiet, waiting. Ethan's eyes fell on the insurance policy, Vanessa's name glaring in black ink. Proof, truth. He needed both, more than he needed air. "Fine," he said finally. "I'll be there." "Good." Lauren's voice softened, almost sympathetic. "I'm sorry about your daughter. Hang in there." The call ended before he could respond. Ethan lowered the phone, his chest tight. Lauren Ross, whoever she was, knew too much. The coffee shop meeting loomed, a flicker of hope laced with dread. Downstairs, the reception carried on, but Ethan was already somewhere else, chasing a truth that might destroy him. Ethan pushed open the door to the Grindstone, the bell above jingling faintly. The coffee shop smelled of roasted beans and cinnamon, its morning crowd thin, 2 baristas chatting, a student typing in the corner. He scanned the room, his stomach knotted from a sleepless night. The insurance policy, the bank withdrawals, Lauren's call. They churned in his mind, each revelation sharpening the blade of Vanessa's betrayal. Now, at 10 a.m., he was here to meet a stranger who claimed to hold the truth. His hands flexed, restless, as he wondered if he was walking into answers or a trap. A woman in a navy blazer waved from a booth near the window. Mid-30s, brown hair pulled back, she had a calm air that didn't match the urgency of her call. Ethan approached, his shoes scuffing the hardwood floor. "Lauren?" he asked, voice low. "Ethan. Thanks for coming." Her handshake was firm, her eyes steady but guarded. She gestured to the seat across from her, a manila folder already on the table between them. "I know this is a lot. Let's get to it." He sat, his pulse loud in his ears. "You said you have proof about Vanessa. Start talking." The words came out sharper than he meant, but he didn't care. Lily's grave, Vanessa's poolside smile, the $1,200,000. They fueled a fire he couldn't douse. Lauren didn't flinch. "I was with Ryan, her lover, for a year. He's the guy in that photo you got." She slid the folder toward him. "When I found out what they were planning, I ended it. But I kept records." Ethan opened the folder, his hands unsteady. Screenshots of texts filled the top page. Vanessa's name, her words cold and calculated. "Once the payout clears, we're set. Beach house in Baja. Half's yours." Another message time-stamped a week before Lily's death. "He's too broken to notice. It's done." Below were receipts, wire transfers to a Mexican account, a real estate inquiry for a coastal property, a deposit labeled Miller Insurance. His throat tightened. Vanessa hadn't just left. She'd built a new life on Lily's death. "She used the insurance money," Lauren said, her voice even. $1,200,000 funneled through Ryan's accounts. They've been planning it for months. New names, new place. She promised him half to keep him loyal. Ethan's vision blurred, rage and grief colliding. "She knew Lily was dying," he rasped. "And she planned this?" The words felt like glass in his mouth. He flipped through more pages. Photos of Vanessa and Ryan at a bar, a lease agreement with her signature. It was meticulous, undeniable. Lauren leaned forward. She thought no one would look, but Ryan bragged too much, and I wasn't the only one he burned. "You've got enough here to bury her, Ethan. Legally, I mean." He closed the folder, his knuckles white. Vanessa's betrayal was bigger than he'd imagined, a scheme woven through their daughter's final days. He looked at Lauren, searching for deception, but found only resolve. "Why help me?" he asked. "Because she doesn't get to win," Lauren said simply. "Not after what she's done to you, to Lily." Ethan nodded, the folder heavy in his hands. He wasn't just grieving now, he was armed. Vanessa's lies were unraveling, and he'd make sure she faced every one. Ethan stood in Vanessa's home office, the folder from Lauren burning a hole in his hand. The room was a corner of their house he'd rarely entered, a space she'd claimed for late-night projects while Lily was sick. Now, it felt like a crime scene. Moonlight spilled through the window, casting shadows over a cluttered desk, a locked file cabinet, and shelves stuffed with binders. The coffee shop meeting had left him raw, Vanessa's texts to Ryan. "He's too broken to notice. Loot. She'd planned a beach house, a new life, all funded by Lily's death. He needed more proof, something to nail her to the wall." He set the folder down and started with the desk, rifling through drawers, pens, receipts, a half-empty perfume bottle, nothing damning at first. Then, under a stack of junk mail, he found a notepad with Vanessa's handwriting, scrawled numbers, $1, 20-cent split, 50/50, Baja closing costs. His pulse spiked. It matched Lauren's evidence, tying Vanessa to the insurance payout. He tore the page off, shoving it into his pocket, and moved to the file cabinet. The lock was flimsy, a paper clip and some force popped it open. Inside, he found a folder labeled Property. His hands shook as he opened it. A sale agreement for a beachfront lot in Mexico dated 2 weeks ago. His name was on it. Ethan Miller, co-senator, but the signature was wrong, a sloppy forgery. Vanessa had faked his approval, tying him to a deal he'd never seen. Attached was a bank statement, their joint saving, once $80,000, now drained to $1,200. Transfers to an offshore account, labeled consulting fees, screamed fraud. Ethan's chest tightened. She'd gutted their life while he sat by Lily's hospital bed. He kept digging, driven by fury. A sticky note on another file caught his eye. "Call Dad deed. Vanessa's father, Charles?" Ethan's mind flashed to the reception, Charles's cold nod, Dottie's blame. Were they in on this? He grabbed his phone and called Ruth, his voice low to avoid waking his father, who'd been sleeping since the funeral. "Mom, did Vanessa ever talk to Dad about property, signing anything over?" he asked, urgency bleeding through. Ruth's pause was heavy. "Last month," she said slowly. "She came by, all sweet, asking him to transfer the cabin to her name. For Lily's future," she said. "Your dad's memory's shaky, but I stopped it." She was pushy, Ethan. It didn't feel right. Elder abuse. The words hit like a punch. Vanessa had tried to manipulate his father, dementia creeping in, to grab more assets. Ethan thanked Ruth, hanging up as his eyes fell on a final document. A credit card statement with charges for a Cabo realtor, a yacht rental, a diamond necklace. Vanessa's greed was a map, and he was tracing every step. He gathered the papers, adding them to Lauren's folder. This wasn't just betrayal, it was theft, fraud, a calculated dismantling of his life. Ethan's jaw clenched. Vanessa thought he was too broken to fight. She was wrong. Ethan sat in Marcus Delgado's office. The folder of evidence, Lauren's screenshots, Vanessa's forged property agreement, the drained bank statements, spread across the polished desk. The Portland law firm was a world away from his small-town life. Sleek furniture, city noise filtering through the window, a clock ticking too loudly. Ethan's hands gripped the armrests, his body wired from days of revelation. Vanessa's betrayal, $1,200,000 from Lily's death, a fake signature, his father's near manipulation, had built a fire in him. He wasn't just grieving now, he was ready to fight. Marcus, his old law school friend, leaned back in his chair, skimming the documents. His tie was loosened, his dark eyes sharp with the focus Ethan remembered from late-night study sessions. They hadn't spoken in years, but Marcus had answered Ethan's desperate call yesterday with a simple, "Come in tomorrow." Now, he set down a page, the notarized amendment naming Vanessa's sole beneficiary, and let out a low whistle. "This is a hell of a mess, Ethan," Marcus said, his voice direct but not unkind. "Fraud, forgery, elder abuse if she targeted your dad. The offshore transfers? That's theft, plain and simple. She's built a house of cards, but it's shaky. We can knock it down." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Can we stop her? Get the money back? She's in Cabo, living it up while Lily's—" He trailed off, the image of Lily's grave choking his words. "I want her to pay." Marcus nodded, jotting notes. "We start with what you've got. The insurance policy's amendment is a forgery. Your signature doesn't match. The property deal, same thing. The property deal, same thing. Bank records show she siphoned your savings without consent. That's actionable. Your mom's statement about Vanessa pressuring your dad? It's elder abuse, especially with his dementia. We've got enough for a civil suit, maybe criminal charges if the DA bites. Ethan exhaled, the plan grounding him. What do we do first? Injunctions, Marcus said, tapping his pen. Freeze her accounts, block any property sales. We'll file a complaint for fraud and theft, demand discovery on her financials. The texts from this Lauren woman, those are gold. They show intent. If she's got more, we subpoena her. You sure she's solid? She's got no reason to lie, Ethan said, thinking of Lauren's steady gaze. She's got her own grudge against Vanessa's boyfriend. Marcus raised an eyebrow but didn't press. Good, we'll need every angle. Vanessa's not dumb. She'll lawyer up fast, especially with her parents' money. But this? He gestured to the folder. It's a strong case. You're not just a victim, Ethan. You're a father fighting for his kid. That carries weight. Ethan looked at the papers, Vanessa's lies laid bare. For the first time since Lily's funeral, he felt a spark of control. Let's do it, he said, voice firm. All of it. Marcus grinned, a glint of the old friend who'd never backed down. That's the Ethan I know. We'll hit her hard, she won't see it coming. Ethan strode into the sleek real estate office, his boots thudding against the marble floor. The air smelled of fresh paint and ambition, a stark contrast to the grief he'd carried since Lily's funeral. Vanessa was here, back from Cabo, according to Marcus's investigator, meeting her mother Dottie and a realtor to finalize a property deal. Ethan's hand gripped a thick folder. Lauren's screenshots, the forged insurance amendment, bank transfers, the Baja sale agreement with his faked signature. Proof of her betrayal, now paired with a voice recording Marcus had helped him secure. He wasn't just interrupting a meeting, he was bringing her lies crashing down. The receptionist blinked up at him, startled. Sir, do you have an appointment? No, Ethan said, voice steel. But Vanessa Miller's expecting me. He didn't wait for permission, pushing past toward the glass-walled conference room. Through the panes, he saw her. Vanessa in a tailored blazer laughing with Dottie and a suited realtor. The sight of her ease, her confidence, lit a fuse in him. She'd cashed in on Lily's death, drained their savings, and thought she'd walk away clean. He shoved the door open, the hinges squeaking. 3 heads snapped toward him. Vanessa's smile froze, her eyes widening for a split second before narrowing. Ethan, she said, voice smooth but edged. What are you doing here? He didn't answer, dropping the folder onto the table with a thud. Papers spilled out, texts, receipts, the insurance policy. I'm done with your lies, he said, his voice low, steady. You forged my name, stole Lily's insurance money, drained our accounts. For this, he jabbed a finger at the property contract on the table. The Baja Beach house she'd planned with Ryan. Dottie gasped, clutching her purse. How dare you, she started, but Ethan cut her off. Save it, Dottie. He pulled out his phone, hitting play on the recording. Vanessa's voice filled the room, crisp and damning, talking to Ryan. Once the payout's through, we're gone. Ethan won't fight, he's got nothing left. Ryan's laugh followed, then her reply, half's yours, babe. Just keep it quiet. Vanessa's face paled, her hands gripping the table. That's manipulated. You can't prove anything, she stammered, but her voice cracked, betraying her. Ethan stepped closer, towering over her. Every transfer, every text, every lie, it's here. He tapped the folder. You used our daughter's death for a beach house, forged my signature, tried to scam my dad. I've got lawyers, Vanessa. You're finished. The realtor shifted uncomfortably, gathering his papers. Dottie sputtered, this is outrageous, but her eyes darted to Vanessa, uncertain. Vanessa tried to stand, her chair scraping, but Ethan held her gaze, unyielding. You thought I was too broken, he said, voice like ice. You were wrong. He turned and walked out, leaving the folder behind. The doors swung shut, muffling Vanessa's protests. Ethan's heart pounded, but for the first time, it wasn't just grief driving him, it was justice. Ethan sat in the front row of Marcus Delgado's office, the fume of a printer spitting out legal documents filling the air. The confrontation with Vanessa 3 days ago had lit a spark, her pale face, her stammering denial, replayed in his mind like a victory. Now, Marcus was turning that spark into a blaze. The desk was buried in motions injunctions to freeze Vanessa's accounts, a civil suit for fraud and theft, a criminal referral for forgery and elder abuse. Lauren's folder, bolstered by Ethan's findings, sat at the center. A roadmap to Vanessa's downfall. Marcus paced, phone pressed to his ear, finalizing a filing with the court clerk. Yes, today. Emergency freeze on all accounts tied to Vanessa Miller. We've got the transfers to prove it. He hung up, turning to Ethan with a grin. It's done. Her offshore accounts are locked. No Baja Beach house, no yacht rentals. She's grounded. Ethan exhaled, tension easing a fraction. What's next? We hit hard, Marcus said, tossing a pen onto the desk. Filed the civil suit this morning. Fraud, theft, breach of fiduciary duty. The forged insurance amendment and property deal are our anchors. Your mom's affidavit about Vanessa pressuring your dad? That's elder abuse, a felony if the DA takes it up. Lauren's agreed to testify. Her texts with Ryan show Vanessa's intent. And Ryan? Marcus chuckled. He's already cutting a deal with the DA to save his own skin. Flipped faster than a pancake. Ethan's jaw tightened, picturing Ryan's smug grin from the Cabo photo. Good. Let him burn with her. Marcus nodded, pulling out a new document. Vanessa's parents are scrambling. Charles and Dottie hired a big-shot firm, but they're sweating. Dottie's name's on a joint account Vanessa used for transfers. Looks like she knew more than she let on at your little showdown. We're adding her as a co-defendant for aiding and abetting. Ethan leaned forward, surprised. Dottie's involved? Deep, but enough to sting, Marcus said. She signed off on one transfer, $50,000, labeled consulting. Sloppy. Their reputation's crumbling already. The town's buzzing. We've got a hearing next week to argue the injunctions. Vanessa's team will push back, claim you're a grieving dad out for revenge, but the evidence is bulletproof. Ethan's mind flashed to Lily's grave, the yellow rose he'd left behind. This wasn't revenge. It was justice for her. What about the insurance money, asked. Can we keep it from her? Working on it, Marcus said. We're petitioning to void the amendment, redirect the payout. If we win, it's yours to decide. Charity, whatever you want. Vanessa won't touch a dime. Ethan nodded, a weight shifting. The fight was real now, no longer just his pain but a machine grinding toward truth. Vanessa's empire of lies was cracking, and he'd be there when it fell. The courtroom buzzed with tension, a packed gallery of townsfolk whispering behind Ethan as he sat at the plaintiff's table. The oak-paneled room smelled of polish and old paper, its air heavy with anticipation. Across from him, Vanessa sat beside her lawyer, her face composed but pale, a far cry from the confident woman in the Cabo photo. Her parents, Charles and Dottie, were absent. Ethan's hands rested on Marcus's folder, now thickened with months of evidence. This was it. The fight for Lily's justice. Marcus stood, addressing the jury. Vanessa Miller defrauded her husband, forged documents, and stole $1,200,000, meant for their dying daughter's memory. She planned a new life while Ethan mourned. The evidence, texts, bank records, a forged signature proves it. His voice was steady, slicing through the room. Ethan's chest tightened as Marcus laid out the case. The insurance policy, the Baja property deal, Vanessa's attempt to manipulate Ethan's father. Vanessa's lawyer, a slick Portland attorney, countered with a smooth defense. Ethan Miller is a grieving father, lashing out. My client acted within her rights as beneficiary. No fraud occurred. But his words faltered as Marcus called witnesses. Lauren took the stand, her voice clear, recounting Vanessa's texts with Ryan about splitting the payout. Ryan followed, fidgeting, his plea deal forcing him to admit his role. She promised me half, he mumbled, avoiding Vanessa's glare. The jury shifted, their faces hardening. Ethan testified last, his voice raw but firm. She used Lily's death to fund a beach house. Forged my name, drained our savings. I trusted her, and she betrayed us both. He held Vanessa's gaze unflinching as her eyes darted away. The courtroom was silent, the weight of his words landing like a gavel. After hours of deliberation, the jury returned. The foreperson stood, her voice steady. We find the defendant, Vanessa Miller, liable for fraud, theft, and forgery. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Ethan exhaled, relief flooding him. The judge ruled, the insurance amendment was voided, the $1,200,000 redirected to a trust Ethan controlled. Marcus leaned over, clapping his shoulder. We did it, man. Vanessa's shoulders slumped, her lawyer whispering furiously. The town's whispers grew louder. Scandal, disgrace. Ethan stood, feeling lighter, though grief still lingered. The money would go to a cause for Lily, not Vanessa's greed. As he left the courtroom, sunlight broke through the clouds outside, a fleeting warmth. Justice wasn't healing, but it was a start. Ethan stood at a podium in the community center. A modest crowd gathered before him. Neighbors, teachers, parents of children Lily had known. The room was bright, a sunlight streaming through tall windows, a stark contrast to the gray days of her funeral 6 months ago. Behind him, a banner read the Lily Miller Hope Foundation, its letters bold against a backdrop of yellow butterflies. Lily's favorite. Ethan's hands rested on a stack of papers. The legal victory over Vanessa, now a tool for something greater. The $1,200,000 she'd tried to steal was his to redirect, and he'd chosen this. a legacy for his daughter that would outlive her loss. He cleared his throat, the microphone crackling slightly. "Thank you for coming," he began, his voice steady despite the ache in his chest. She was light. She loved butterflies, Mr. Paws, and making everyone smile, even when she was sick. Losing her broke me, but it also showed me what matters. This foundation is for her, for kids like her, fighting illnesses they shouldn't have to face. The crowd listened, some wiping tears, others nodding. Ethan's eyes found Ruth in the front row, her smile soft but proud. He pressed on. "The money we recovered, $1,200,000, will fund treatments, hospital stays, research for rare diseases. No family should choose between hope and a paycheck. Lily's name will mean healing, not pain." He stepped back, gesturing to a pediatric doctor beside him, who outlined the foundation's first grants: a local girl's chemotherapy, a boy's experimental treatment in Seattle. Ethan watched the crowd, seeing Lily in their faces, her warmth, her fight. Vanessa's betrayal had nearly destroyed him, but this was his answer. The money she'd chased now saved lives, starting with children in their own town. As the event ended, people approached. Mrs. Patel hugged him, Coach Daniels clapped his shoulder. "Lily'd be proud," Coach said gruffly. Ethan nodded, throat tight. He'd spent months unraveling Vanessa's lies, forged documents, stolen savings. But this moment wasn't about her. It was Lily's victory. Ruth joined him as the room cleared, her hand squeezing his. "You did right by her," she said, eyes glistening. "She's still with us, Ethan." "In this?" He looked at the banner, a butterfly catching the light. "Yeah," he said softly. "She is." For the first time, grief wasn't the loudest thing in him. Hope was louder now. Small, stubborn, like Lily herself. Ethan knelt beside Lily's grave, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the Oregon cemetery. The grass had grown over the once raw earth, softening the edges of her headstone. Lily Miller, beloved daughter. "Forever our light" was etched in stone, a yellow butterfly carved beside her name. In his hand, Ethan held Mr. Paws' twin bear, the one left on Lily's bed after her funeral. Its fur was soft, worn from her hugs, a mirror to the one buried with her. He brought it to leave here, a final tether to let go. The air was cool, carrying the scent of pine and damp soil. Ethan's fingers traced the butterfly carving, his chest heavy but not crushing like before. The trial was over, Vanessa's lies exposed, her stolen money now funding the Lily Miller Hope Foundation. He'd fought for Lily, turned pain into purpose. But this moment was private, just for them. "Hey, sweetheart," he whispered, voice catching. "I brought Mr. Paws to keep you company. The foundation's helping kids like we talked about. You'd love it." Footsteps crunched behind him. Ethan turned to see his father, Harold, approaching slowly, Ruth guiding his arm. Harold's eyes, clouded by early dementia, flickered with recognition as he stopped beside the grave. Ethan stood, surprised. His father rarely left the house now, his memories slipping like sand. "Dad, you okay?" he asked softly. Harold stared at the headstone, his weathered face tightening. "Lily," he murmured, voice rough. "She was something special." He paused, then looked at Ethan, a rare clarity sharpening his gaze. "She told me once, Daddy's the strongest of us all. Said it when you were reading her stories. She was right." Ethan's throat closed, tears stinging. He hadn't heard that memory, hadn't known Lily saw him that way. Harold's hand trembled as he patted Ethan's shoulder, the gesture awkward but firm. "You're doing good, son, for her." Ruth smiled, tears in her eyes, and Ethan nodded, unable to speak. He set the bear beside the headstone, its small form resting against the stone like a guardian. Harold's words echoed, "Daddy's the strongest," and for the first time, Ethan believed them. Lily's love, her faith in him, hadn't faded. It lived here, in this quiet place, and in every life the foundation would touch. As Ruth led Harold back to the car, Ethan lingered, his fingers brushing the butterfly one last time. "I love you, Lily," he said, voice steady. "Always." He stood, the weight lighter now, carrying her with him as he walked away. Ethan sat cross-legged in front of Lily's grave, the early morning light painting the cemetery in soft gold. The air was crisp, a new day stirring with the chirp of birds in the nearby pines. Mr. Paws' twin bear rested against the headstone, its fur catching the dew, a quiet sentinel beside the carved yellow butterfly. Ethan's fingers brushed the grass, now thick and green over the earth that held his daughter. The Lily Miller Hope Foundation was thriving. Its first grants had saved a boy's life last week, but this moment was for him and Lily, a private goodbye to the weight he'd carried. He exhaled, the ache in his chest softer now. Not gone, but different. Vanessa's trial, her fraud, the $1,200,000 she'd tried to steal. It all felt distant, like a storm that had passed. The foundation was Lily's legacy, proof her light still shone, but Ethan had needed to come here one last time, to let go of the guilt and rage that had tethered him to pain. "You're my hero, kid," he whispered. "You made me better." A flutter caught his eye. A butterfly, its wings a vivid yellow, danced in the air above the headstone. It hovered, delicate and sure, then settled gently on the stone, right beside Mr. Paws. Ethan froze, his breath catching. Lily had loved butterflies, chasing them in the yard, giggling as they flitted away. This one stayed, wings trembling faintly as if carrying a message. Peace washed over him, warm and unasked for, loosening the knot he'd held since her funeral. Tears welled, but they weren't bitter. They were release, freedom from the questions that had haunted him. Had he failed her? No. Lily had seen him as strong, and he'd fought for her, turned betrayal into hope. The butterfly lifted, circling once before drifting toward the sky, a speck of light against the dawn. Ethan smiled, wiping his eyes. "Love you, sweetheart," he said, the words light now, not a burden. He stood, the grave no longer a wound but a place of memory. Lily was with him, in the foundation, in the butterfly, in every step he took forward. Ethan walked back to his car, the sun rising higher, knowing he'd survived the worst and come out whole. He'd honored his daughter, and that was enough.